There's the where do I put my hands, I think.
Yeah, well, there's that one too. That's a classic.
Nights.
Adam, go ahead and start us off here.
Well, starting off, can you give us an update on the roster, just kind of how guys are doing? A couple guys a little banged up after that game, and Scotty's status as well.
Yeah, we'll start with Scotty. He's back. He's still processing through, some of that family stuff. He's got our full support, but he's back. But he's still working through that.
Okay.
Bruce will be the other one I imagine you want to hear about. He got hit in the thigh, kind of took a knee to the thigh. We're still evaluating him, but and then Roddy obviously I know was out for a stretch of the game. We expect him to be back. He was obviously able to return. So anybody else you had in mind? I think that was most of
Everybody's
it.
a little banged up this time of year, right?
It's that time of year. I think it's that time of year. So we got an unbelievable training staff, and Q does a great job getting guys ready. Yesterday was more of a recovery day for us, specifically because we didn't know who we were going to play till later in the evening. But we took full advantage of yesterday to recover.
And then you've talked about trying to figure out staffing things and what this is all going to look like moving forward. Is there any update on the status of what the coaching staff will look like going forward?
Yeah, no official comment on that yet. Nope.
Georgia's very much a team fueled by its backcourt. Just what have you seen from them on tape as you've tried to prepare for this game?
Yeah, they're good. Listen, I have a ton of respect for Coach White going back to when we were in the SEC together. I think he's a really good coach. His teams play tough, and he's usually had some really good guard play. You can go back and look at his times at Florida. So I think with Georgia, there's a great deal of versatility from a scoring standpoint on the roster. You look at they got, I want to say it's maybe 7 guys who are like 7 points or more on the season. So he's a good coach. They got good players. We got to have a great day of practice to get ready.
What does it mean to be able to have another home game? Obviously, that was up in the air depending on your opponent, but with the way the atmosphere's been these last few games, being back here for another NIT game.
Yeah, the atmosphere's been awesome. Awesome. Buckeye Nation has been incredible. The Nut House has been there. We've felt the presence of our fans in both of these NIT games, and I think it's helped us particularly down the stretch. So going into the game, it wasn't necessarily rooting for one team over the other because they're both really good teams, but we certainly welcome the opportunity to be in the shot, and thankful we get to do that one more time for our fans and for these guys on our team.
Obviously, these have both been close games. Do you put that more on a lack of familiarity with the opponent, just because it is tournament-style play? And I know you talked about that before Cornell, the quick turnaround, but tight games because of kind of the nature of the beast here?
I'd put it more on the fact that they're good teams.
Okay.
I think that's number one. But yeah, I think the quick turnaround, the win or go home element of the game, all that stuff plays a factor. But most importantly, it's good teams and what have been good veteran teams and well-coached teams. I think that's probably the biggest reason.
When did you realize that the games are going to trickle to Hinkle Fieldhouse and that this wasn't at the Garden or Vegas anymore and you were going to play at Hinkle if you went to the semis?
I didn't realize that till probably the day before our first game. I was in, you always remember the NIT being in Madison Square Garden, the finals and the Final Four. But I played in Hinkle. It's an awesome venue. So hopefully, obviously, we got to handle our business, but hopefully we get an opportunity to play there.
As far as the roster goes, the talks about whether guys are staying or leaving, does that still happen during this time? Is that ongoing? Or do you kind of press pause on that and say, as long as we're playing, we're not talking about that? How does that work?
That's been player-led that, we're going to wait till after the season. I think our guys are really focused on what we have going on right now, and they want to get out there and win. And so we've done everything we can to just lock in on that. But, yeah, the nature of this time of year in college basketball, it's crazy. But our guys deserve a ton of credit for really keeping the main thing right now.
And then as far as Scotty goes, I know Chris would talk about you guys had programs in place for guys dealing with mental health stuff. What does that look like now under you, and how have you guys helped Scotty in this time?
Well, I think for Scotty, he knows he has our support and the support of Ohio State and all the resources we have here that he may feel like he needs or doesn't need. But we've come alongside him, we're supporting him. I think he's doing well. He's just processing some things.
To have the success and commitment from the guys to have success in this tournament, what does that say about their buy-in and their character?
says a lot. You know, I think the way we finished this season, the way they performed in the postseason says a ton about who they are as people, says a lot about the chemistry within this team and program, and it speaks to their pride for, you know, what's on the chest of their jersey, but also playing for guys who this is the end of their college basketball career and playing for each other.
I'm not trying to make you play the what-if game, but when you see how Purdue and how Illinois have advanced and how you beat Purdue and outside of a crazy foul game, and you're right there with Illinois, and everything is so close this time of year. It's such a thin line, and you know how close you guys were.
Listen, I think the metrics would back this up. The last, 6 weeks or 5 to 6 weeks, we've been one of the better teams in the country. And I love the way we've played. We felt like, we had put ourselves in a conversation to be in the NCAA tournament. That's where we wanted to be. That's what we were fighting to get to. And we've also had an opportunity here in the NIT to show, again, that we've been playing some of the best ball in the country. So, yeah, we'd certainly, I personally spent a minute or two thinking about, man, what could we have done? But it's very quickly back to the task at hand. We're embracing the opportunity in front of us, and we got to keep doing that.
Is that added motivation in the NIT? Using that?
I don't know if it's necessarily added motivation. I think our guys are motivated by the fact that there's a game to be won, there's a championship to be won, that we're playing really good teams, and they're motivated to play for each other.
You've talked about Jameson's voice this season and maybe what he's given you, especially these last couple of weeks. How have you seen his voice change as the year's gone on? From a guy who early on seemed like he didn't want to step on toes, he wanted to acclimate, and now he seems to be a pretty important vocal part of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you transfer in and you're only going to be there for 1 year. There's an element of figuring some of that stuff up, but some of that stuff out. But I've just encouraged him to, just be himself. And he's earned the right to use his voice. We've certainly needed it. And I think he and I's relationship has helped with that. But maybe the perspective, too, of him missing that Michigan State game and kind of how he saw how impactful he could be while not playing with his voice, maybe that helped him, too. But he's got a great deal of maturity and experience. He's about winning. Like, he's about all the stuff you want a leader to be about, and you're seeing him now embrace that leadership role down the stretch of the season, and it's been really impactful for us. His play certainly has. I don't want to minimize that, but so has his leadership.
How much has that mattered to you as you've been, not that you had to find your voice, you had a voice in this team, obviously your role has changed, and when you have a fifth-year guy who does that kind of stuff, how much does that help you as you take over in a way and have to start leading this team in a different way?
I think it helps a great deal when guys can see the dialogue that I have with them in front of other players, and it maybe empowers them to again have that dialogue. Like, that's going to be important. It's important to, I think my style is I want that dialogue in game, because I remember being a player and I remember seeing things and feeling things, and I want our guys to be able to communicate that. So you're seeing maybe younger guys who aren't used to having a voice witness some older guys who are now maybe have strengthened their voice and used it more, and hopefully that encourages everybody to have more dialogue and things specifically in game. I think it's really valuable for players to do and offer that.
You went to Dayton yesterday for the state championship. Just how surreal was that to be there as the Ohio State head coach, and what was kind of the reception there of coaches, officials, fans? I'm sure everybody was happy to see you, I would think.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable reception. I hadn't thought about that or anticipated that going into it, but for obvious reasons, the state tournament, state championship holds such a special place in my heart for our family. And I love being a part of that. I remember being a part of that long before I was in high school. It's something I look forward to every year, and I feel like our association here does a great job putting that on. And so it's something I hope to just be able to be at, every year. Every year.
You were there with your brother too. He was there, with what he's doing at Butler. What were those conversations like?
Yeah, it started off with like, hey man, it's been a while since I've seen you. How you doing? I'm so happy for you know, what John's been able to do, starting his coaching career, obviously had a long professional career, and I think he's a rising star. Certainly learning under Thad Matta is going to be really beneficial for him. But it was more about, it was the first time I'd seen him in person since all of this. And so got a good hug in, and we just kind of caught up on family stuff. Because a lot of times when we talk, you know, during the week or almost daily, it's a lot of it's work related. So this was more just catching up, and he got a pretty warm reception from people too, as I'm sure you can imagine. So that was cool for us to be able to share that stuff together.
How important is it since last Monday when you were officially hired as head coach to play in all these NIT games, to have more practices, to have the team even gel even more?
I think it's been great. Yeah, it's been great. Again, most importantly for our guys, but I'm certainly wired like they are. If there's a game to be won, like, we're going to give it everything we have to do it. And I really enjoy coaching this group, and so that's been the best part.
Going back to the character you're talking about, Kellyanne's question, Jameson made it pretty clear in here early on. He was here to get in the NCAA tournament. Dale's played in the NCAA tournament before. To have those guys buy in, like you're saying, when they kind of didn't reach what they wanted to, and this could be the end for them. How much does that speak to that character you're talking about, of specifically those guys that they could have bailed on this and whatnot, but they decided to play with their teammates?
It's a great example. It's a great example of what exists in our locker room right now. So those two have certainly helped lead the charge in that, and it's not exclusive to them, you know, by any means. But I think it says a lot about, you know, kind of who we've been as a program, you know, this stretch of the season.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to talk about it, right, and for guys to mention things, but people are seeing it firsthand by the way we've played and competed, and I think, you know, they're leading by example in that regard.
Going off that a little bit more, I know obviously you're focused on the present and just beating Georgia, but how much do you buy into the fact that, you know, a run like this can build momentum for next season and what you guys want to establish moving forward?
I think if you look at the history of Ohio State basketball, you've seen, you know, an NIT run impact that. So we'll see ultimately, like, how impactful that can be. The time will tell there. But there's a history here of teams that have done that. It's gone on to, you know, provide some momentum. I think today's landscape of college basketball may impact how much, certainly. But yeah, we're not doing this because of that. We're doing it because of the guys we have here. But, you know, we'll certainly welcome as much momentum as we can get moving forward.
For a guy like Taysom, how valuable can this time be, considering he missed time in the preseason? And also, how hard is it to just come in and hit a three like he has, it seems like, the last 3 or 4 games for you guys, just when you're playing 3 to 5 minutes a game?
Yeah, he's been, you know, I think he's been really good in his minutes, and you can see we've tried to give him an additional part of the rotation, and he's earned that. You know, he's earned that. He's a good player. There's no question about that. I feel for him because of just the choppiness of his first year. It just was, it really, not certainly to his, certainly out of his control, right? But I think we all would have liked to see what it could have looked like for him if he had a full summer, full fall, you know, all that. That stretch is so important for freshmen. It's so important. It's critical. It sets a tone for their kind of growth, and he's a really, really talented player. But I think you're seeing, too, some qualities from him, a standpoint of, like, he's stayed ready. He's gone in and he's had some really good moments. And it's certainly, some of that is his talent, but it also speaks to kind of who he is.
When you do look forward and finalize the staff, how important is experience? Adding maybe some guys who've been on the bench for a couple of years?
Yeah, experience is going to be important. I think guys who you know, can relate to players and recruit. There's a lot of elements that go into that.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. But yeah, experience is really valuable, for sure.
I just wonder if that was, with this being your first head coaching job, do you need to find someone to fill out the staff who has maybe been in that role, or someone who has been around college basketball for a while that can maybe bolster some areas that you're catching up in a little? Yeah,
we'll look for experience. Will be a factor, certainly, as we put it together.
Can I ask, just recruiting, a general question? Now that you are head coach for 1 week so far. What's been the response, maybe from coaches, kids, parents, AAU people, just the people you're going to be leaning on to have talent for this program going forward? What's been the response, I guess, so far?
People seem to be really excited. Families, players, coaches. I think there's a lot of excitement about this program right now, and people are excited to see where we can go from here. So as a head coach, I want to be really involved in recruiting and active in that space, and continue to lean into current relationships and build and grow those. So it'll be important.
Jake?
All right.
All right, guys.
Good luck.